Please be seated. Just as a gentle reminder, folks, if you have a cell phone with you today, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. My name is Susan Winkelstein, and I'm a funeral director with Chicago Jewish Funerals. We're about to begin the services for Mrs. Ann Leiner. Officiating will be Rabbi Shlomo Tenenbaum. Rabbi.
There's a blessing that we say in a cemetery, so I always like to start a funeral with this blessing. So I'm going to read it in Hebrew and then I'll translate it into English. So I think it sets the tone. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar eschem bedin b'zon v'chilka eschem bedin v'hemis eschem bedin v'yodea mispar kulchem bedin v'osid achiyoschem l'kaim eschem bedin. Baruch atah Adonai mechayei amesim. It says, blessed is God, King of the universe, who gives us life with a purpose, nourishes and sustains our life with a purpose, and then when it's time for us to leave this world, that also there's a purpose and the timing of that. And God knows the sum total of how long we're here, what our job is, and God will eventually restore and resuscitate us also with a purpose. That our bodies are temporary, but our soul is eternal. The spark of godliness, which is our soul, that we're saying goodbye to the body, but the soul is still with us. That's the reason we pray for a person after they leave, is because they're not with us here, but they're still with us in that spiritual way. We say, blessed is God who resuscitates the dead. It's a basic Jewish belief that God will bring back at one point the souls back into this world, so we're saying goodbye. It's a temporary goodbye until that time. I'm gonna ask Rachel to. I think Rachel wanted to share some words.
So I guess before I forget, I just want to thank everybody who's been so supportive during this time. It's been, it feels like it's been a really long road, but it was actually a pretty short amount of time that Mom really took a turn for the worst. But I'm so appreciative for everybody that I've had around me, and I'll never be able to say how grateful I am for all of your support. You all knew and loved my mom, and my mom loved all of you back, and I know that she would be ever gracious as she was. Super grateful for just how much love you're bringing and showering on our family. It's really hard to give a proper tribute to my mom in this short space of a eulogy. She was an amazing woman with a wide variety of interests, from politics to history to music and language and travel. And she and my dad would trounce Marguerite at me at Trivial Pursuit. It was really embarrassing just how much they knew and how little we knew. She spoke Yiddish, Spanish, some Italian and French, and she could even understand some Russian and Hebrew. And she was a very intelligent person with a memory that most of us would envy, especially when it came to remembering names and personal information that people had shared with her. Her true gift was as a listener. She had a genuine interest in every person she met, and she would make them feel as if she had been a close friend for years after just a short conversation. Whenever she came and stayed with us, and she'd take Alex and Brianna out to the park when they were little or walk our dog Rosie, she ended up meeting our neighbors, and she would come back and tell us stuff about them that we had no idea of. Whether it was the Uber driver who became a close personal friend, or the staff in at the hospital or the doctor's office, she really spoke to everybody with warmth and kindness. Although she never wanted to spend money on herself, anyone who knows her will be able to picture the well-worn denim jumpers and corduroy pants that were her wardrobe staple. tzedakah was a core value for her. When I went to clean out her house, there was a basket full of envelopes from the various charities she supported. And in spite of her limited income, she always made sure to send something to all the organizations that were close to her heart. Social causes, Jewish organizations, and animals were especially important to her. And even in her later years, she kept several pushkas where she put her spare change, and which were pretty full when I went to clean out her house. My mom loved reading. She and my dad were definitely well matched in their passion for books and newspapers, and her interests were broad, ranging from mysteries to biographies of historical fiction. I still have this vision in my head of the Harry Truman biography, like about this big, that she read the entire thing. She loved stories by Yiddish writers and so much more. She also enjoyed attending lectures, doing continuing adult education classes at Northwestern, and she loved going to the theater and listening to and singing opera. Although I do not and will never share her passion for opera, I'll be forever envious of her beautiful singing voice and her lovely musical ability. At services when I was a kid, on Friday nights when we would sing, I always hoped my mom would sing loud enough to drown out my dad, from whom I inherited a complete inability to carry a tune. Mom had a lovely soprano voice, and I wish now that it's too late for me to ask, that I had ever asked her if she had wished she'd pursued her musical talents further. She was really incredible. My mom was definitely a person who spoke her mind, whether you wanted to hear what she had to say or not. And she was a person with very strong opinions. This trait often made her difficult to live with, especially when I was younger, but you always knew where you stood with her and never had to wonder if she was just telling you what you wanted to hear. Later in her life, I feel like she actually mellowed, and she would often let me know she thought I was being too hard on the kids if I yelled at them, or on Manolo if I complained about something. Bubby was Brianna and Alex's biggest fan, and months, literally, before their birthdays or Hanukkah, she would pester me and ask me what gifts to get them. They were the light of her life and could do no wrong, and she was intensely proud of their accomplishments, large and small. I know she'll live on in their hearts and in the photos on their phones. I feel very fortunate that she and my dad, too, got to be part of their lives, and I'm grateful for all of the special memories we have. We had so many holidays and celebrations that she was part of in every year of their lives. She was also Manolo's biggest fan, next to my mother-in-law anyway, and would frequently tell me how lucky I was to have found such a wonderful man to marry. She loved the fact that he's a teacher, and she was very proud of him and all that he has accomplished. Although I don't know if she ever expressed it, at least not to me, she was greatly appreciative of the sacrifices Manolo made to come and live here in the U.S., especially knowing what a warm, wonderful, and loving family he has in Spain. She was lucky enough to meet his family twice, once before we married and once more recently when she took a trip there with Manolo and me and the kids. Manolo's family welcomed her as one of their own with warmth and affection, and she often did comment to me how truly embraced she felt by Manolo's family. She asked Manolo about them often, and although they did not email or talk on the phone, their hearts stayed connected all the same. My mom held a special place in her heart for my mother-in-law, Anna, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Anna and my mom, Anne, died on the very same date. I can feel them smiling down on us as parents and as Bubby and Abuela, and we are better people for having known them both. There's so much more I could say about her time as a social worker at the Ark, and all the lovely people she met there, all the things she did to embarrass me as a kid. Marguerite, if she were here, would have plenty of stories to tell for sure. And her volunteer work more recently, such as reading to people with dementia at CJE, or how much fun she had joining her lovely group of ladies at water aerobics. But that can be saved until we celebrate her life in person. I always thought that celebration of life was kind of a hokey term until I realized that that is exactly what my mom would have wanted us to do once we can all meet in bigger groups in person. My mom was a happy, optimistic, generous, warm person who thrived on personal connections and would never want to see everybody somber and moping around. She loved nothing more than a gathering of family and friends with food and laughter. So even if you're feeling sad, honor her memory by eating pizza or a plate of gnocchi and enjoying a big bowl of ice cream for dessert. She'll be enjoying it along with you in heaven.
As you were speaking, it struck me they also shared the same name. That's interesting. Let's see. Find that place here. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo achsar ben azdesha yarbitzeni al mei menuchas yinaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo gam ke'elech v'getz halmovis lo yirarok. Ki ata yimadi shivtach v'mishamtecha himi yinachamuni taruch lefonei shulchan neged zorai dishanta b'shem roishi kosi rivaya ach toy v'chesed yurdufuni kol yemei chayai v'shafti b'beis Adonai l'orech yomim. It's customary to say Psalm 23, God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God lies me down in lush pastures beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and leads me on the paths of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, because God is with me. Your rod and staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in a view of my tormentors. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God for the length of days. That line at the end about may only goodness and kindness pursue me, is really, I think, sums up her life in a variety of ways. First, really struck me how appropriate it is to say goodbye to our beloved Anne. And this Shabbos, we're going to be reading the story of Noah's Ark, and she was a multifaceted person, but the Ark definitely was a core center in my experience with her. And I truly stand here in grief, having lost a mentor, a cherished, intimate friend, and a role model. She was initially a co-worker, but almost immediately became much, much more to myself and my family. Should be noted when you work with somebody, on the one hand, it's kind of a superficial relationship. On the other hand, you spend a lot of time with the people you work with, more than your immediate family. And the Ark is a unique place where the Ark was always had a family atmosphere. Our den mother, Renee Lepp, is here, was our director, and first I have to say I have a hard time just putting my head around Anne not being here. She was so active. You look at this picture on the service folder. In my memory, at least, she never got old. She never slowed down. These last few weeks were obviously very, very trying, but until a few weeks ago, she was just that powerhouse. When I came to the Ark, I was 24 years old. I was just out of school a few weeks, insecure, ignorant, professionally ignorant, and Anne probably had her MSW maybe even before I was born. and she from day one accepted me as an equal, and she never lectured me, but she was a true mentor in this unassuming way that she had. And she made me feel immediately at home. Because I grew up in Evanston, which gave me a nice connection to her as well. I grew up, I was bar mitzvahed at Mikdash El, right where she lived, and she was, I think, active in the shul different times. And I think just thinking about Anne, the one thing that just jumped out at me most is that she didn't have like an artificial fake cell in her body. She was one of just genuine, real, in a crazy world of bluff and bluster that we live in. She and Marv were just real people, and you always knew where you stood. And it's true, she was opinionated sometimes, but whether you agreed with her or not didn't make a difference, because you knew that it was coming from her heart. And albeit she was, it was a funny thing. I was thinking as I was writing this, people show off and they try to keep up with the Joneses. She might have been the most secure person I ever met. She was comfortable in her own skin. She wasn't trying to keep up with anybody. She never tried to show off to anybody. And and I think I think it was, first of all, part of her power as a successful social worker for many decades was that you work with people that aren't comfortable in their skin, and just to know her was therapeutic. You saw that you don't have to be something else. You can be yourself, and you're okay, and you can start from that place and then figure out where you're going from there. And she also, when I came to the Ark, I was just married about a year, and anybody who's married for a year knows that things aren't always fairy tale like, and you have your struggles learning how to be a married person. She and Marv were, along with Renee and Seymour, were just always role models about how to treat a spouse with respect. And how to get along, how to make everything work. Another thing about her, I always saw her as kind of this pure vision of social justice. She was passionate about the world at large, and she cared about politics and bigger things. But around the Ark, she was, to me, always like a throwback, almost to like what I imagine, the Jane Addams, like this pure vision of social work and about making the world a better place, one person at a time. We had mentioned you spent holidays in, and we sometimes had to negotiate with her which holiday, because we also had the blessing of your mom and dad, sharing a lot of holidays with us. My kids always looked at them as like grandparents, and it was, but I think your mom is doing, kids are kids, and they don't usually warm up, but your mom was such a warm, kind person. Every one of my kids is heartbroken about her passing, and they all felt this special connection to her. My in-laws would spend the holidays. They loved her. My mother loved her. And when my mother was sick, your mom came to visit her in the hospital. They probably were close in age, maybe about the same age. And it was just amazing to me that connection everybody made with her. Like you said, to know her was to love her. Marv also worked with my father for many years, so we had that connection. I'm just flooded with a million beautiful memories. The Ark, working in the Ark can be a pretty intense place. We deal with a lot of pressure and a lot of emergencies, and So, the camaraderie of your coworkers is a big deal, and being able to share a laugh here and there is, kind of, I've never seen anybody drink on the job, but that's our, at least a joke is how we let off a little steam. And so we just had a lot of beautiful, laughs together. One of my favorite memories of Ann was we used to make a little Purim movie, like a humorous Purim movie. And one year, I think I wrote her some lines, and she ignored everything I wrote, and she ad-libbed. She put on this Queen Esther mask that already looked ridiculous, and and then she went to the pharmacy next door and robbed them with a pushka. Man, I have that on film somewhere. So, another memory that came to mind that so I was writing this up was the infamous cockatiel affair. This is maybe a crazy story, but I think it says a lot about Ann and about my wife and I. We had a coworker in the Ark who moved out of town and gave me 2 cockatiels in a big giant cage, and we had them in the house, and they were a little bit labor intensive. So we had triplets, which when we had the babies, your mom would come over all the time and help with the kids. And but I decided, triplets and the cockatiels was too much, so I brought them to the Ark. The Ark was still on Devon Avenue then, and I brought them, and I thought it'd be nice in the waiting room. I have this cage with the birds there. So this will give you an idea how long ago this story happened. That's you could still smoke indoors. So Ann saw the birds. And she saw people smoking, which was, allowed back then, and she went ballistic. She said, it's bad for the birds. You're going to kill these birds. It's unacceptable. So I come in one morning, and the birds are gone. And I'm trying to figure who would have stolen a cage with birds. And then somehow or another, I figure out that she took the birds to some bird sanctuary. I remember it was... and I was able to negotiate to get them back, although I didn't, and I agreed I didn't bring them back to the Ark where the smoke was. I had to take them back home. But I remember it was across from the Baha'i temple. It was like in this lady's garage where she had hundreds of birds, and we went in there, and we were getting attacked by these crazy birds. And it's funny, after that story, you'd think I would have been a little upset, but she was just always sincere. And she was always coming from the right place, from a sincere place. So you couldn't be angry at her. You didn't always agree with her, but you just, you knew she wasn't trying to pull something over on you. So, and I look back at that it was sort of a stress test of our friendship. And I loved her the same after as before. And, if anything, our friendship deepened. When my sister became ill, Ann saved the day. I have a sister who became very ill a few years back. And my sister had a dog, and we didn't know what to do with the dog. We're not dog people. And Ann got this wonderful foster home for my sister's dog. My sister was able to visit every weekend. It was like amazing what she set up for us. When my sister herself had to go into a day program at CJE, Ann made it a point to be there. My sister was afraid to go to this program, and Ann was volunteering, and she switched her day to make sure that when my sister would see a familiar, friendly face there. And my sister stayed in there for a while till she got a little bit more disabled, and and really Ann kind of came through and made the day. And her career was amazing. Her post-career was more amazing. Just how, first of all, when she was working at the Ark, she was also always involved in different organizations, a Levy Center, and different things. And then once she retired, besides the teaching gig that she did, she couldn't sit still. But what she did at CJE and animal shelters, she was just a mitzvah machine. And so we're gonna really, really, really this such a special person that we were blessed to have in our lives, and she was one of a kind, and we gotta think about her every day. Okay, so Okay, yeah, I was trying to do. Do you have a cottage in here? Somewhere in the, I'm gonna try to say cottage.
Yeah, I do. It's over Zoom, but it is.
Okay.
Are the ones that others I don't know. No, many are, but not all. But there's a lot that are not. Smaller groups, I think. I saw this.
Hi, I'm Nama. I'm from the art.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I was John talking about you as well. So, we love her art family. That's for sure. Thank you for coming. Wow. Mom would be so touched.
She actually invited me to her house, your house, once. Started working at the art.
Yeah, Mom made a place for everybody. That's for sure. We definitely did.
Where's Boris from? Oh, there's
I wanted
Boris.
everyone to feel
Okay.
welcome.
Recently, she was volunteering at the art fair and I heard her
Yeah, she was telling me, I said, well, I can't do it one day because I'm helping with
Rachel?
serving meals.
No, just we got a guy to help with the menus. So I want to grab a quick cottage and then we'll, okay?
Okay.
You have the cottage card? You want us?
It should be on the, yeah.
Okay. Huh? That's what's on the card?
Yeah.
Okay, so. We're gonna take a minute out to say the Kaddish, just to make sure while we have a minion. The gentleman was kind enough to help us make a minion here. So, the Yisgadal, Yizkadash Shmei Rabbah. V'alma Divrach Yerusei. V'yamlich Malchusei. V'chaye Echon. V'yom Echon. V'chaye Rechol Beit Yisrael. V'agala. V'zman Kariv. V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Varach. L'olam L'mel Maya. Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitba'ar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yithadar, Yitalev, Yitalal, Shmei, the Kodashah, Brichu, Leila, Minkal, Berchata, Shirata, Tushvachata, Nechamata, Damiran, Dam, Balmad, Vimru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba, Min Shemaya, B'chayim Aleinu, Al Kol Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimroma V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Okay, so we're going to finish the burial and do the Kel Mole. Yeah, Taka did it before. But, yeah. Rachel, what do you know your mother's father's name?
Yes, Aaron Yosef.
Aaron Yosef.
So
Okay.
it was Anna Bas Aaron Yosef?
Anna Dvorah.
Anna Devora.
Bas Aaron Yosef.
Chana Devora.
Hannah
Chana Devora.
But Rivka Yosef. Aaron
Aaron
Yosef.
Yosef.
Aaron Yosef and Devora. No, Rebecca.
Rivka.
Rivka. I don't know her mom's
So
middle name.
Hannah
Rivka Marin. Thank you. I'm glad you know.
Hannah
Chana Devora is my mom.
Bas Aaron Yosef. Scott, thank you.
Of course. Of course. Thank you.
Now it switches to the
Yeah, he's we're ready for the Kelmo, and he's going to do his beautiful voice.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm always afraid my parents will stay in the room. To move them to another section. Oh, that's pretty enough. Scary about the practice. Yeah, it was a lot of noises in the house at the same time.
Okay, Rabbi Dr. Montrose is going to do the Kel Mole, and then, and then we're going to do a Shura afterwards.
O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of divine presence in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones, who shine like the glow of the firmament to the soul of Anne Leiner, the daughter of Aaron Yosef. She went on to the world because they will contribute to charity and remember her soul. May her resting place be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter her in the shelter of his wings for eternity. And may he bind her soul in the bond of life. Hashem is her heritage. And may she repose in peace on her resting place. And we answer, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Ashchina, B'malos Kedoshim Utorim, K'zorakim Asirim, Es Nishmas, Chana Devora, Basra Baran Yosef, Sholocha, Leolamah, Bavur, Shamishpacha Mispalo, Netain Tzedakah Bli Neder Baras Koras Nishmasa, Began Eden, Tehemenu Chasa, L'chein Baal Harachamim, Yastireh, B'seiser Kenafav Leolamim, Yitzvor, B'tzorachayim Es Nishmasa, Adonai, Hu Nachalosa, V'senuach HaMishkava B'Shalom, V'nomar, Amen.
Okay, we're going to end the service with what we call Shura. So we're going to ask everybody to try to make 2 rows facing each other over here. And then Rachel will walk through and we share words of condolence.
Are we supposed to go there or no?
Sorry?
Are we supposed to go with Rachel? Are we supposed to go with Rachel?
No,
just
just
her.
Rachel.
Oh, okay, yeah. Here, Peter, you want